necessarily much worse than a divine sea powerhouse like Saitubanan who was nearing the end of his life. After entering the 8,000-mile black swamp once again, Lin Ming was no longer the same late revolving core weakling he had been. In the face of the dangers here, he had enough strength to resist. Moreover, Lin Ming had already come to the 8,000-mile black swamp once before and was extremely familiar with the environment. Without any great danger, he soon arrived close to the center of the 8,000-mile black swamp. At novel been at. However, wanting to find this divine dragon was not simple. Although this sea serpent divine dragon had a body over 1,000 miles long and emitted a gas that could cover the sun and moon, both space and time within this 8,000-mile black swamp were distorted and there were closed-off force fields everywhere. It was impossible to search for this divine dragon using one's perception. If one wished to find it, then they could only rely on their own luck. Soon, several days passed as Lin Ming searched the 8,000-mile black swamp, during which he encountered many of the strange and peculiar existences that lived here. There were creatures similar to ghosts, creatures of flesh and blood, and even creatures that looked as if they were formed from mud. However, since their strength was all below that of the divine sea, they simply weren't a threat to the current Lin Ming. At this point, in front of Lin Ming, a 10-foot-high humanoid monster appeared. Its skin was the color of a ghostly green and it was thickly corded with muscles. There was a single giant eye that dominated its head, and it grasped a mace that was larger than 2 men, waving it haphazardly in the wind. Cyclops Demon. Lin Ming was stunned and immediately recalled the name of this monster. This creature was an archaic desolate monster that existed in the ancient times of the Skyspill continent 100,000 ago. Sometimes it was tamed by top masters to be their mounts. This monster's strength was incomparably powerful and its bodily defensive power was comparable to a heaven-step treasure. Its single eye could release a demonic light that sucked away all life vitality and turned the body to stone. Any random Cyclops demon could absolutely be ranked anywhere in the top 20 of the Destiny Decree. And this was only because they had low intelligence. Otherwise, if they could practice cultivation methods, martial skills, and concepts, then their combat efficiency could be imagined. The eye of a Cyclops demon was an extremely rare and precious alchemy ingredient, and their tough skin could be used to make heaven-step leather armor. However, they were simply far too difficult to deal with. Even a top 10 ranked Destiny Decree master would find this task near impossible and would be advised to avoid them. The Cyclops demon's defensive power was just too formidable and its blood vitality was too potent. If one couldn't defeat it in a short period of time, then that was a recipe for disaster. However, Lin Ming actually didn't plan on avoiding it. He wanted to test the might of the great desolate blood halberd, and he also fancied the bodily materials of the Cyclops demon. He could keep the eye for his own use and the rest of the body could be given to the Forsaken God clan to refine into treasures. CA. A demonic light shot from the Cyclops demon's eye, beaming towards Lin Ming's heart like a bolt of thunder. Lin Ming stepped on golden rock, shattering the void, and vanished like a puff of smoke. In the next moment he had arrived behind the Cyclops demon. He held the great desolate blood halberd with both hands and revolved the power of the 8 inner hidden gates, using the gate of limit to erupt with over 1 million gins of strength, and the heavy great desolate blood halberd smashed down like a falling meteor where it struck the Cyclops demon's shoulder. Bang! With an explosive sound, the Cyclops demon's shoulder was twisted apart. Blood and broken pieces of bones shot into the wind. Because its feet couldn't withstand the tremendous pressure, both of them fractured and buckled. The entire right side of the Cyclops demon became ruined flesh and all of its ribs were broken even as its organs came spilling out. The Cyclops demon that was famed for its amazing defensive power was smashed to death by Lin Ming's halberd. This halberd is awesome. Lin Ming exclaimed out loud. Although he had erupted with his complete physical strength, he actually hadn't used true essence. Striking with that halberd had caused his arm to tingle and his blood to tumble in his body, but even so, he felt a feeling of satisfaction as if all the cells in his body were stretching out at once and wantonly absorbing energy. By just moving his body he emitted crackling sounds from all his joints. This feeling of bliss was something that fighting with the essence gathering system could never achieve. Fighting with energy was still relying on non-bodily forces after all. If sphere lights struck each other, no matter how intense the collision was, a martial artist would be safe as long as they weren't affected by the shockwaves. It wasn't like the body transformation fighting style, where every strike released an impact force that could be felt through the body. Although I don't use the Great Desolate Halberd art anymore, just using the Great Desolate Blood Halberd to hit people makes it a great weapon. Lin Ming thought out loud. He was about to cut apart the Cyclops demon's corpse, when at this moment he felt his heart shrink a bit as an inexplicable chill covered his entire body. This sense of unease and dread caused him to look up into the distance. He could only see that far off through the dense layers of fog, there was a group of shimmering fluorescent shadows floating over like ghosts. These shadows looked as though they were slowly drifting, but the truth was that their speed had reached the extreme. At first they were only small lights in the distance, but in the blink of an eye one could make out their appearance. They were 6 sinister-looking evil spirits all dressed in black robes. Their faces were fierce and they drifted to and fro like ghosts. Their demon claws each grasped a thick chain, and the 6 chains linked together, dragging a bronze ghost coffin behind them. This ghost coffin was immeasurably large, being 10 feet high and 30 feet long. All sorts of strange and mystical totems were carved into the coffin, and it seemed heavy and terrible, emitting an energy that made the soul tremble. Lin Ming instantly felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. He held his breath and drew back as far into the shadows as he could, not even daring to move about. It wasn't the coffin that these 6 evil spirits dragged that terrified him, but rather the 6 evil spirits themselves left Lin Ming gasping for breath. Because humans practiced a different cultivation system, Lin Ming couldn't make out the cultivations of these evil spirits. But, he could still feel that all of them surpassed him by an immeasurable amount. Lin Ming himself already had a combat strength that reached the very pinnacle of all life destruction masters. Anyone higher would be at the legendary 8th stage of life destruction or the Divine Sea. And, these 6 evil spirits had strength nearing that of a human Divine Sea Supreme Elder. They were likely equal to quasi-emperor existences of the Fey race and giant demon race. These 6 quasi-emperor level powerhouses were all pulling a bronze ghost coffin together. Just what was in the ghost coffin? Lin Ming didn't think that it would contain only a corpse. Even if it were a corpse, it would be some strange demonic monster like a 10,000-year corpse devil or corpse puppet. And what was most likely was that whatever was inside that bronze ghost coffin was an existence from the same race as those 6 black-robed evil spirits. And, its strength must be unimaginable. The 8,000-mile Black Swamp was known as a land that life destruction martial artists would find perilous, but a Divine Sea Supreme Elder wouldn't be in too great of a danger. Thus, that mysterious existence within that bronze ghost coffin shouldn't belong to the 8,000-mile Black Swamp. Otherwise, if a normal Divine Sea powerhouse were to encounter it, they would be more than dead. Did that mean it was something that came from the true Sea of Miracles? As this thought suddenly flashed through his mind, Lin Ming's heartbeat nearly stopped. At this moment, he was very clear that if the monster in that bronze ghost coffin had even the slightest bit of interest in him, then he would most assuredly die here. The bronze ghost coffin was extremely fast. It only took a few breaths of time to travel several hundred miles away. However, to Lin Ming, every breath of time felt as long as a year. Ho! The ghost coffin flew away, floating right over Lin Ming's head before vanishing without a trace. The endless dark clouds on the horizon didn't have the slightest hint of light, as if complete darkness had fallen over the entire 8,000-mile Black Swamp. They left. Lin Ming felt his back and palms wet with a cold sweat. He knew that if that mysterious existence in that coffin had investigated its surroundings, there was no way he could have hidden from it. It was possible that it might have been sleeping, or it might have been because Lin Ming's own first-stage life destruction cultivation was too low to arouse interest. But no matter the reason, he had just passed a great calamity. Just what was that? Wiping away his cold sweat, Lin Ming was still shaken with shock and alarm. He had originally been planning on exploring the 8,000-mile Black Swamp some more, but now it seemed as if it would be prudent to obtain the sea serpent crystals and leave here as soon as possible. Against a powerhouse of that level, he didn't believe he could resist even a tiny bit. Lin Ming hurriedly put away the Cyclops demon's corpse and immediately left. He displayed his movement technique and rushed towards the opposite direction of Bronze Ghost Coffin, rapidly flying ahead. However, before even an incense stick of time passed, he instantly came to a screeching halt. His breath caught in his throat and a chill crawled up his spine. In front of him was a dirty dark yellow river that surged with great billowing waves, emitting an infinite deathly energy. The Yellow Springs River. Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Become more formidable. Sweet revenge! We'll rip these brutes to shreds. I need more hatred to do that. Hatred is too low. returning to town.
Impressive.
This will aid me. A fine choice.
Brave the rifts.
Not enough hatred. Darkness awaits you. My hatred is too low. Darkness awaits you. Your fear betrays you. Your fear betrays you. Your hatred to do that.
Rift Guardian.
Yes.
I need to go back.
You have proven yourself.
The light grows stronger within you. Ah, good. Thank you. Just the thing.
Fortune favors the bold. Do come back again. What? I didn't even know I had that thing.
My pack is full. waiting. Your fear betrays you. Darkness awaits you. Your fear betrays you.
The Rift Guardian is here.
Become more formidable. I am returning to town.
Impressive.
That was just a taste. Feel my wrath. That was just a taste. Vengeance! I have more control now.
Martial World. Chapter 873 Opening the Gate of Pain. Chapter 873 Opening the Gate of Pain. The dark and putrid Yellow Springs River was 1,000 feet wide. On the shores of the other side, the world was submerged in the darkness of night and filled with a suppressive, deathly silence. In the river's waters, countless skeletons floated on the surface. Of these skeletons, many of them were non-human races. Some of these races had wings, horns, tails, and even looked like hell demons from myths and legends. Just by glancing at this Yellow Springs River, an inexhaustible sorrow and despair filled the heart. It was like this river was alive and also held the most important thing of their entire life. But, no matter how they thought about it, they could never remember what it was. All they knew was that once they left here, they would lose it forever. Lin Ming had seen the Yellow Springs River before, but this time he was struck by the greatest summoning power yet. If it weren't for the fact that Lin Ming's heart of martial arts was tough and his will was steady like iron and he had also comprehended a silver battle spirit, then his mind would have likely fallen into the illusion and he would have died here. He fiercely bit down on the tip of his tongue, using that stinging pain to awaken himself. Lin Ming instantly launched his movement technique and flew backwards, running several dozen miles in a single breath. Only then did he slow down to collect his scattered thoughts and calm his fearful shock. As he looked over to the direction of the Yellow Springs River, he saw that it had already been covered in a foggy darkness, completely vanished without a trace. Just what is that Yellow Springs River? Why would it flow in the eternal demon abyss 1,000-mile forbidden zone and why would I see it here at the 8,000-mile black swamp? The 8,000-mile black swamp was so broad, how could he possibly encounter the Yellow Springs River here? And as for those skeletons floating on top of the river, just looking at the pure number there was likely no less than 1 billion corpses. That was 1 billion lives. Moreover, those were not ordinary existences. Those were all top super powerhouses. It seems that those evil spirits pulling the coffin were also one of the types of monsters in the Yellow Springs River. They have a horn on their head and their height is also similar. Although they were very far away, Lin Ming had been able to approximate the size of those 6 black evil spirits. They were around 10 to 20 feet tall. As for that bronze ghost coffin, it was 30 feet long. That was many times the height of a human. Perhaps they really did come from the Sea of Miracles. When Lin Ming was at the Holy Demon Continent, he had looked at many jade slips with records of the Eternal Demon Abyss. He was able to confirm that there were existences that lived within the Eternal Demon Abyss. Moreover, Lin Ming had also seen with his own eyes a living beast within the Eternal Demon Abyss, a massive god beast that was thousands of miles in length. However, according to the description of the jade slips, these existences would never leave the Eternal Demon Abyss of their own volition. There were only some of the weaker monsters that would be shot out by the occasional eruptions of the Eternal Demon Abyss. What is in the Sea of Miracles? Could there be an entrance to another world? Lin Ming shook his head, not really believing that explanation. If the Sea of Miracles was truly an entrance to another world, then it was certainly a high-level world. Without discussing how extensive it was, just the rank of that world itself should be no less than a world of the divine realm. How could such a world be located at the remote and unknown Skyspill continent? And how could the martial artists from the divine realm just freely ignore it? The existence of a new world meant new lucky chances. There would certainly be top powerhouses that came to explore the dangers of that new world. Lin Ming didn't understand this puzzle. He shook his head, no longer thinking about it. This matter simply far exceeded his current boundary and wasn't something he could investigate. Even by the time he reached the Divine Sea he might not have the ability to enter the Sea of Miracles. That was a life forbidden zone in the truest meaning of the term. I'm too weak. If I can reach Fairy Feng's level, then I might be able to do some investigating. Lin Ming sighed. At this time, a dense fog suddenly filled the dark skies, completely enveloping the world. The fog became increasingly thick, and after a short period of time it became like a thick black soup in the air, nearly solidifying into essence. As Lin Ming saw this occur, he let out a light breath. This was sea serpent gas. He had finally run into it. After being in the 8,000-mile black swamp for so many days, Lin Ming finally encountered the sea serpent gas once again. He calmly took out the cosmic melting furnace and began drawing a large amount of sea serpent gas into it. The burning star flame blazed and the black sea serpent gas quickly condensed. Compared to the last time that he entered the 8,000-mile black swamp, Lin Ming's speed at which he refined the sea serpent gas was several times quicker than before. This was because he had increased his cultivation and also because he had made significant progress with his alchemy technique. Soon, that massive amount of sea serpent gas was refined into a bean-sized sea serpent crystal. Lin Ming didn't stop here. He continued to draw in sea serpent gas and refine it, growing the crystal larger and larger until it reached the size of a finger. Because Lin Ming's strength had risen, his refined sea serpent crystals were even purer. Just this small crystal seemed as if it contained a hidden space within, both strange and mysterious. Lin Ming only required an incense stick of time to complete the first sea serpent crystal. He kept refining all the way until the black sea serpent gas finally dispersed. By this time, Lin Ming had refined over 50 sea serpent crystals. The last time Lin Ming was here, he had only refined a dozen or so sea serpent crystals. After leaving the cosmic melting furnace, Lin Ming felt a bit unsatisfied. These sea serpent crystals were top treasures. It was a pity that the sea serpent gas didn't last longer, otherwise his harvests would have been greater. And the next time he wanted to find this sea serpent dragon wouldn't be easy. The 8,000-mile black swamp was filled with layers of dangers. Even with Lin Ming's current cultivation, he still wasn't safe here. I only took less than 0.0001% of this sea serpent gas, and yet there is such an effect. I wonder just how powerful this sea serpent dragon is and just where it is hiding. How powerful is it compared to that great beast in the eternal demon abyss? Lin Ming didn't stop. He directly impacted straight into the Nine Heavens Thunder Dominion until he reached the 90-mile zone. He let the heretical god Sprout absorb the golden red lightning to its limit, and then left the 8,000-mile black swamp in the same night. All through this time, Lin Ming didn't meet the purple lion thunder source. Perhaps it was because the Twine Life Thunder Crystal had already been used by Lin Ming, but whatever the reason, the purple lion thunder source hadn't sensed Lin Ming arriving. This saved him a great deal of trouble. 3 days later, Lin Ming returned to the Forsaken God clan through their hidden transmission array, and went directly to the seclusion chamber. He readied himself to open the Gate of Pain as well as simultaneously crossing the second stage of life destruction. With over 50 sea serpent crystals lined up around him, Lin Ming took out the wood spirit jade box containing the sealed myriad spirit pill from his spatial ring. As soon as he opened the wood spirit jade box, the myriad spirit pill instantly tried to rush out. Lin Ming caught it, feeling like he was holding a powerful divine insect in his hands. The pill wildly dashed around in his hand, hoping to escape. This pill really does have intelligence. If I were to let it go here, then it would escape into the deep mountains or seas where it would absorb essence energy. Perhaps after hundreds of thousands or even millions of years, it would eventually transform into some ghostly spirit. After he grasped the myriad spirit pill, Lin Ming recalled the method of how to use it from the Divine Realm Alchemist's memories. He took out a heaven step dagger that he had requested from Shai Bai earlier, and then cut open his own chest without hesitation. Puff. Blood splattered outwards. Lin Ming's body was extremely tough. Even if he didn't use any energy to protect himself, just his own physical body was difficult enough to pierce. He had no choice but to pour his silver battle spirit into this dagger. After cutting open a gap in his chest between two of his ribs, Lin Ming could clearly feel the strong beating of his own heart. The myriad spirit pill contained the condensed plant essence from thousands of medicinal herbs, all of them turned into thin filaments. In order to completely absorb this pill, he would have to directly implant it into his heart and let his blood wash over it, causing those several thousand filaments to fuse into his body where it would be slowly absorbed. This was a long process that would take several days. To cut up their own heart, that was an action that an ordinary person would never have the will to do. Lin Ming took a deep breath and steadfastly cut down. Blood splashed out. Lin Ming shoved the myriad spirit pill into his heart, burying it deep inside a ventricle. Then, Lin Ming revolved the power of the Gate of Healing to slowly regenerate his wounds. However, the myriad spirit pill did not peacefully lie in Lin Ming's heart. It dashed left and right, smashing into the walls of Lin Ming's heart, every single impact like a hammer smashing into him. The heart was an extremely fragile and important organ. Normally, if a martial artist's heart were to be struck like this, then their heart would explode. They would vomit out blood and die on the spot. Even someone that practiced body transformation techniques and had extremely tough heart walls would find this sort of impact leading to arrhythmia and eventually death of the heart muscles. After Lin Ming swallowed the profound gold divine fruit, his physical body had become incomparably tough. In addition, with having opened the first 3 of the 8 inner hidden gates, he was just able to withstand this myriad spirit pill. It was only when the myriad spirit pill smashed into the wound that Lin Ming had created with a dagger did Lin Ming feel as if a saber was gouging into him. Every time this happened, he would become deathly pale and his forehead would become wet with sweat. As the medicinal efficacy flowed into his body, the striking impact of the myriad spirit pill became increasingly weak. Finally, it stopped crashing around and began to be obediently absorbed by Lin Ming. In implanting the myriad spirit pill, the only danger and pain were at the start. The medicinal efficacy itself was very gentle and easy to absorb. This was because the myriad spirit pill took a long time to dissolve. The several thousands of condensed medicinal herb filaments would have to enter the bloodstream one by one. This process was extremely time-consuming. In the blink of an eye, several more hours passed. The scab on Lin Ming's chest naturally fell off, leaving nothing behind but a shallow and rapidly fading white mark. At this time, Lin Ming had already entered the ethereal martial intent state. His 2 fists grasped 5 sea serpent crystals as he began to impact the Gate of Pain. The Gate of Pain was located in the palms. It could also be said to be 2 gates, one in each hand. At this time, Lin Ming moved his arms, lifting them evenly, palms up. 2 whirlpools of energy formed above Lin Ming's palms and the essence of the sea serpent crystals was rapidly absorbed into them. The translucent black sea serpent crystals began to slowly whiten before becoming a stone-like white lime and then finally cracking with a par and turning into power. After 10 sea serpent crystals were finished, Lin Ming grabbed another 10 and continued to absorb them. Under the continuous wearing of this energy, the gates of pain in Lin Ming's palms were continually being impacted, becoming more and more loose. 10 hours. 20 hours. 1 day. 2 days. 3 days, at novel being at. On the 4th day, far too much energy had gathered within Lin Ming's palms, full to the point where it seemed it would explode. The energy of over 50 sea serpent crystals had been completely sucked clean by Lin Ming. With a loud shout, his fist suddenly exploded and 2 arrows of blood shot high upwards, even breaking apart a massive hole in the dome of the seclusion chamber. Lin Ming's 2 palms seemed as if they had been pierced by arrows and shattered. The gate of pain had finally opened. Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Feel my wrath. We'll rip these brutes to shreds. Feel my wrath. Do you want more? Bleed, you filth! I can get accustomed to that. I need to go back.
Let's see what happens, shall we? What? I didn't even know I
I
had
cannot
that
afford
thing.
that.
Fates?
Martial World. Chapter 874 Comprehending the Laws of Time. Chapter 874 Comprehending the Laws of Time. Lin Ming drooped downwards until his back was against the ground. His hands slightly trembled and a small pool of blood was already appearing underneath him. Looking at his body, Lin Ming was overjoyed even as he wryly shook his head. All the meridians on his arms had been broken, and even some of the meridians of his body had been damaged. His 2 hands would be temporarily useless. The word pain in the Gate of Pain contained the implications of a double-edged sword. Opening the Gate of Pain would cause damage to the martial artist, and while fighting using the power of the Gate of Pain, that would also cause a burden on a martial artist's body. Thus, this was the reason the Gate of Pain was the last of the 8 inner hidden gates' first 4 gates. Only by opening the Gate of Healing and the Gate of Limit, which could drastically change the physical properties of a martial artist, would they then be able to withstand the backlash from the Gate of Pain. As Lin Ming looked at his hands, he gave up crossing the second stage of life destruction for the time being. Usually, these types of wounds could be healed in several days with Lin Ming's regenerative powers. But, the wounds brought forth by the Gate of Pain would last for over a month. Moreover, during this period of time, his physical condition and all aspects of his combat strength would decline by a great deal, before slowly restoring to an even higher peak. There was a sense of breaking himself and creating something even better. But during this time, Lin Ming didn't plan on simply resting either. He planned to meditate on the space-time laws jade slips that old man Good Fortune had left behind. In particular, the records concerning the concept of time, Lin Ming was extremely interested in those. With the meridians in his arms ruined and unable to connect energy through his body, Lin Ming's current strength was even worse than some low-level martial artists. He simply rode a divine carriage that was pulled by 8 golden birds that resembled phoenixes, soaring through the skies of the Forsaken God Clan's back mountains. He enjoyed viewing the various beautiful flowers and trees, meditating on the time laws in comfort. Although the Forsaken God Clan's dimensional realm was covered in layers of array formations, Shy Bai still sent out many bodyguards to accompany him. There were even many beautiful maids that served him, meticulously meeting all of his needs. As Lin Ming rode on top of the divine carriage, wrapped in silk and cloth and jewels, his handsome and exquisite jade-like looks facing the world, he seemed like a noble prince. This was a sort of life that many martial artists desired. For instance, the South Sea's Nanian Wang, or many of the princes and princesses of the 4 divine kingdoms would be accompanied by heavenly music as they went out to travel. They would have divine soldiers clearing the way for them with saint beasts drawing their carriage forwards. Meanwhile, they would even have massive numbers of beautiful young maids and concubines around then, hugging these women left and right. Lin Ming never thought that one day, he too would enjoy a similar life. After resting for 40 days, Lin Ming finally felt his strength slowly return to his body. The meridians of his arms had nearly been completely restored and there was nothing left on his 2 palms but extremely faint scars that looked like watermarks. One couldn't even see them unless one looked very closely. These were scars left behind by the Gate of Pain. After more time passed, even those would vanish, only revealing themselves when he opened the Gate of Pain. At that time, Lin Ming would also be able to burst out with his strongest energy, instantly reaching almost 2 million jins of strength. At novel being at. Following that, Lin Ming felt his strength was growing every day. The muscles of his body grew with beautiful edged lines, accentuating a gently aesthetic beauty that was smooth and powerful at the same time. He felt as if he had been reborn once again. His body had been filled with endless strength, as if he could lift a mountain above himself. What Lin Ming most desired to do now was to find a powerful opponent to fight. Unfortunately, no one under the Divine Sea was his match any longer, and as for those Divine Sea Masters like Shy Bai, he wasn't able to defeat them. Within the Skyspill continent, in the last 100,000 years of never-ending time, it was extremely rare for a life-destruction martial artist to be able to jump ranks and fight a Divine Sea Master. First, this was because there was a massive gap between life destruction and the Divine Sea, and every person able to break into the Divine Sea was themselves a proud son of heaven, a peerless genius of their era. Of course, those Divine Sea powerhouses that couldn't break into the Divine Sea before they were 100 years old and had to rely on lucky chances to do so were only the weakest of Divine Sea powerhouses. Only those martial artists that stepped into the Divine Sea realm through their own strength could be considered true peak Emperor-level talents. In order to cross a great boundary to defeat a proud son of heaven, one had to be an even more monstrous genius. Wasn't that easier said than done? Perhaps those 6 evil spirits I saw in the 8,000-mile black swamp that were pulling the bronze ghost coffin might be able to give me a hearty battle. That bronze ghost coffin still echoed in Lin Ming's mind. Just what level had the existence slumbering within reached? Lin Ming shook his head, no longer thinking about these things as he continued to perceive the time laws. The time laws that old man Good Fortune left behind were extremely mysterious, enough to keep Lin Ming entranced. After immersing himself within them, several hours passed in an instant. Lin Ming's impression was that the concept inheritances of the Skyspill continent were far more limited than those from the Divine Realm. But, the concept of time jade slip that old man Good Fortune had left behind actually had some direct hints about the source of the Great Tao. This was simply like the inheritances from the Divine Realm. Did old man Good Fortune enter into a mystic realm left behind in the Skyspill continent from 100,000 years ago, and obtain an inheritance from the Divine Realm? No matter how talented a martial artist was, they still had to have some sort of basis in order to deduce even more profound concepts and laws. It was impossible to form a set of laws from thin air. All signs indicated that 100,000 years ago, the martial arts civilization of the Skyspill continent was glorious, even containing the tiniest hint of the splendor from the Divine Realm. Old man Good Fortune had lived for 8,000 years, it was impossible to count just how many places he had been to or how many mystic realms he had explored. It wasn't strange for him to have such an inheritance. I wonder why old man Good Fortune would lend such precious jade slips to me. As Lin Ming was thinking of returning to his chamber and practicing some of the laws recorded on the jade slips, at this time, the flame of a sound-transmitting talisman shined out in front of him. This was a message from Shy Bai. The message was simply please come to the Elder's Palace. Millimeter. Lin Ming was startled. This must be a serious matter for Shy Bai to want to speak to him face to face. As Lin Ming arrived at the Elder's Palace, he saw that Shai Bai and the masked old man were already waiting inside for him. The masked old man was the second Divine Sea Supreme Elder of the Forsaken God clan. He was extremely mysterious and rarely spoke, even Lin Ming didn't know his name. On a table in front of Shai Bai were placed 2 letters. As Lin Ming looked at the seals marking them, he saw that they came from the 9 Furnace Divine Kingdom and the Sublime Smelting Divine Kingdom. The 9 Furnace Divine Kingdoms Yong Yun and the Sublime Smelting Divine Kingdoms Yu Qingfeng have each sent a letter. Take a look at them. Shai Bai flicked his finger and both letters flew into Lin Ming's hands. Lin Ming was originally calm, but as he slowly read through them, he found it increasingly difficult to keep his cool. As Lin Ming finished reading both letters, he let out a long breath. The 2 letters spoke of the same matter. It was that the Temple of Marvels that existed in the Sea of Miracles had appeared in the skies above the 8,000-mile Black Swamp. When Lin Ming had joined Yong Yun at the 9 Flowers banquet, he had heard a sublime smelting prince mention the Temple of Marvels. This temple was extremely fantastical and was said to appear only in the deepest areas of the Sea of Miracles. Only some Divine Sea Supreme Elders that had penetrated deep into the 8,000-mile Black Swamp had been able to spot it from a distance, and even they felt as if they were looking at nothing more than a mirage. No one had ever returned alive from the Sea of Miracles, and even approaching the edge was dangerous, let alone investigating the temple. Just a random great beast from the Sea of Miracles would be able to easily devour a Divine Sea Supreme Elder. But now, because of some unknown reason, the Temple of Marvels had appeared in the skies of the 8,000-mile Black Swamp for the first time in known history. As Lin Ming thought of this, he immediately remembered the bronze ghost coffin he had encountered earlier. The existence sleeping within it might very well have come from the Sea of Miracles. After he saw that bronze ghost coffin, the Temple of Marvels had drifted out from the Sea of Miracles. It was natural to associate the two when there was such a coincidence. How were the two related? Was it even possible that the Temple of Marvels was the palace of the existence within the coffin? Looking again, it seemed that the 4 Divine Kingdoms had already used various methods to investigate the Temple of Marvels the day before. The Sea of Miracles was known as an absolute life-forbidden zone, and the Temple of Marvels was also likely a cursed place. Even if they knew there were lucky chances within that defied the will of the heavens, no one dared to recklessly rush in for fear that they would never be able to step back out. The Asura Divine Kingdom had sent out slaughter puppets to investigate. The 9 Furnace Divine Kingdom, Sublime Smelting Divine Kingdom, and 7-Star Divine Kingdom had also sent out similar puppets or enemies they had planted slave seals within to investigate the Temple of Marvels. In around a month's time they would have their results. At that time, they would assess the risks and decide whether or not they should enter. Currently, the entire periphery of the 8,000-mile Black Swamp had been cordoned off by the 4 Divine Kingdoms and it was impossible to enter. Yong Yun and Yu Qingfeng had both sent these letters because they wished to ask Lin Ming whether or not he would like to explore the Temple of Marvels with them. Lin Ming was filled with longing and curiosity for the secrets in the Sea of Miracles. With Lin Ming's character, he normally would have made the trip. But now, with the great enemy of Saitu Haoxian floating around, he couldn't help but think solemnly of his decision. Lin Ming didn't think he had the ability to escape Saitu Haoxian, even after opening the Gate of Pain. In the mystic realm, the Asura Divine Kingdom simply wouldn't care about decorum. Once Lin Ming was killed, just what could the Forsaken God clan do? If he died, what use would there be in them killing Saitu Yaoyu? And besides Saitu Haoxian, he feared that characters like the 9 Furnace Highest Divine Emperor and the Sublime Smelting Imperial Grand Uncle would appear. These people were existences Lin Ming could not possibly hope to contend with. They might outwardly be on good terms with him, but in that mystic realm with enormous benefits all around, who knew just what they would do? Little brother Lin, I don't think you need to take this risk, Shai Bai slowly said after considering the matter for a moment. Because of my Forsaken God clan's bloodline curse, we are unable to leave this dimensional realm for an extended period of time. This sort of mystic realm will likely not be explored in 3 to 5 days, so it's impossible for us to go. And in truth, even if we did go with you, if we leave the protection of the realm Heart Great Array, we will no longer be a match for the Asura Divine Kingdom. And if you go by yourself, you will be in extreme danger. Saitu Lao you can be used as a chip to threaten the Asura Divine Kingdom, but it's impossible for you to take her along as a protective charm. I understand, Lin Ming nodded. Although he loved to adventure and explore, he certainly wouldn't enter a mystic realm with such a low chance of survival. He could only say that it was an unfortunate set of circumstances. However, what Lin Ming didn't expect was that just a day later, another letter would arrive. This letter was from Old Man Good Fortune. He intended to enter the Temple of Marvels, and if Lin Ming desired to go, he could also bring Lin Ming along. Old Man Good Fortune. Lin Ming's heart stirred as he took a deep breath. Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Read, you filth!
The Rift God.
I'm here to help.
coming to town.
Martial World. Chapter 875 Second Stage Life Destruction. Chapter 875 Second Stage Life Destruction. With Lin Ming's current strength, he was far from being able to protect himself if he entered the Temple of Marvels. But, if he could obtain the protection of Old Man Good Fortune, then even a top-level character like the Nine Furnace Highest Divine Emperor wouldn't even be able to touch him. Lin Ming only casually knew Old Man Good Fortune and had no particular reason to trust him. But as he thought of it, Old Man Good Fortune was like a wild crane that leisurely flew through the world with no influence behind him, and without any conflicts of interest. There was just no reason to harm him. Moreover, for someone at his rank, there was very little in this world that would cause him to scheme. And even Old Man Good Fortune had been planning something. He could have just abducted Lin Ming from the dimensional realm by force, and Shy Bai would have only been able to watch helplessly as that happened. There would have been no need to wait for today. Little brother Lin, what do you plan on doing? Shy Bai asked. At novel bean at. No matter what I do, first I must break through the second stage of life destruction. There was only a month until the time to enter the Temple of Marvels. Increasing his own strength first would be the safest bet. If he crossed the second stage of life destruction and also opened the Gate of Pain, then Lin Ming had no idea just how strong he would become at that time. Although it was impossible for him to contend against the likes of Saitu Haoxian, he believed he would have enough strength to safely escape Saitu Yaoxi or Saitu Banan with his life intact. Break through the second stage of life destruction. Great. Shy Bai was startled, but not too surprised. Lin Ming had stepped into the peak of the first stage of life destruction a year ago, and after such a long time passed, it wasn't strange for him to break into the second stage. 2 days later, Lin Ming closed up once again. After opening the Gate of Pain, Lin Ming's physical strength and mentality were at their highest peak. Successfully breaking through the second stage of life destruction was nearly guaranteed. When Lin Ming first crossed into life destruction from the revolving core realm, he had used his Danshan as the core to disintegrate his body, so it hadn't been easy at all. But for breaking through to the second stage life destruction, he was able to use all of the true essence within his body and flesh to thoroughly decompose his body. This was a much simpler process, and Lin Ming also had ample amounts of golden red lightning stored in the heretical god sprout. Within the seclusion chamber, layers of array formations covered the central platform. Lin Ming stepped onto the central array platform and then revolved all the energy within his body and divided his 360 AQ points into 72 points. These 72 points covered his entire body. With Lin Ming's control, he crazily absorbed true essence. Then, with his Danshan as the center, he erupted. Golden red lighting poured out from the heretical god sprout. Combined with the energy throughout his body, it thoroughly broke down his body. All his meridians ruptured as a rain of blood shot into the air. Lin Ming turned into a vague blood fog that was filled with an incomparably pure heaven and earth origin energy. Normally, if a person's body exploded like this, then they would be deader than dead. However, the miraculous and marvelous laws prevented this from happening. This could be called the Heavenly Tao, and the road of martial arts was only a single path of exploring the Heavenly Tao. When a martial artist cultivated martial arts, they were conquering the Heavenly Tao to use for themselves, thus the reason why cultivating the martial path was considered to be defying the will of heavens. On a human's journey on the road of martial arts, there were unknown laws that would protect them during these crucial moments. When they were about to break through the boundaries of life destruction, their body would completely disintegrate, with energy fusing into their every cell. Then, all of this would be locked into a small area, forming an accommodation for their soul. This primordial life suit was similar to the amniotic fluid that surrounded a baby in their mother's womb, allowing the martial artist to maintain their fires of life. Rich heaven and earth origin energy would fuse into this primordial life suit, tempering all the cells with energy and ejecting the impurities. These cells would then begin to reform into a spirit body. The grade of the spirit body all depended on how thoroughly a martial artist disintegrated their body and how pure the energy was that tempered their cells. In this primordial life suit, Lin Ming's consciousness was incomparably clear. It was like he had become a liquid life form. He swam in a sea of energy, able to examine every cell in his body and watch as his flesh and blood were tempered by energy, slowing changing. A month soon passed. The results of the investigation of the Temple of Marvels returned. The 4 divine kingdoms had joined forces to jointly send 30 test puppets into the Temple of Marvels. Finally, only 2 had returned, one from the Sublime Smelting Divine Kingdom and one from the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom. This was because the test puppets those 2 divine kingdoms had sent out had been the strongest. Especially the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdoms. In order to obtain the best and the most information they could on the Temple of Marvels, they had even sent out a divine sea-level puppet. Even the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom only had a single such puppet. They had consumed a massive amount of heavenly materials in order to freeze its fires of life and seal it away, and now was the best time to use it. All those below the Divine Sea will be in dire peril if they enter. And those at the Divine Sea have a chance of dying, but they can most likely return alive. The results of the investigation were extremely satisfying. It had to be said that the Temple of Marvels was a place of ancient ruins that floated over the skies in the Sea of Miracles. It wouldn't be strange for all who entered to die. However, with the protection of a divine sea powerhouse, then the most extraordinary disciples of the four divine kingdoms might be able to go into experience and adventure. Not to mention the massive lucky chances that likely existed in the Temple of Marvels. But even if these young disciples weren't able to obtain any great treasures for themselves, just going in and expanding their horizons by experiencing such a high-level mystic realm would be extremely advantageous for their future growth. Forsaken God Clan, Dimensional Realm. In the seclusion chamber, Lin Ming slowly woke up. He was lying naked on the floor. After his body was broken down and reformed, it gave off a feeling that he had been resurrected from the dead. The second stage of life destruction had been successfully crossed. From outer appearances, Lin Ming lacked a touch of sharp and dominating aura. All of it was restrained within him, making him see as if he were an elegant young man that loved to read books and recite poetry. Lin Ming stretched out his hand and countless arcs of purple electricity formed in the air. These electric arcs were thin and long and gathered together like strands of silk, forming substantialized purple cloth. After a moment, this purple silk wrapped around Lin Ming's body and formed a loose robe. This loose robe covered all the beautiful hard lines of Lin Ming's muscles, making him seem like a young student scholar. However, Lin Ming's eyes flashed as if thunder was contained within them. These shining sparks were actually the power of thunder that had deeply penetrated into every cell of Lin Ming's body, almost having the same effect of carving the thunder laws into his body. In terms of Lin Ming's cultivation, although he had just stepped into the second stage of life destruction, he had already reached large success of the second stage. Despite the fact that he wasn't yet at the peak, this couldn't be considered too far from the third stage of life destruction. This was the superiority that came from having an incomparably solid foundation. Once one broke through, they would easily be able to touch upon the next realm. With every step Lin Ming took, he could feel that every breath he took contained a touch of fragrance. Even his bodily fluids like his saliva and sweat had an aromatic and fresh scent. This was because after he was reborn with a spirit body, not only were there no impurities in his body, but any casual movement he took was able to direct heaven and earth origin energy into his body, flooding every corner of his being with that pure energy. Mortals love to describe the bodily fragrance of a fairy maiden as having been untouched by the fires and smoke of men, their bodies not smelling like the wine and meat of the mortal world. The reason for this was because they ate rare spirit flowers and fruits every day, and what they drank was the fresh mountain dew of the early morning. Only through this way could they guarantee that their bodies weren't tainted by the impurities of common mortals. But Lin Ming didn't need to do any of this. He could eat rice and meat just like a common mortal, and because he now possessed a spirit body, he would naturally eliminate all impurities from his body and refine pure energy. This was also the reason why the life destruction stages were called the process when a martial artist was reborn. Little brother Lin, old man Good Fortune's letter has arrived. He will arrive at Port State in 3 days and wait for you there. As Shai Bai saw Lin Ming leave seclusion, his eyes brightened for a moment before he spoke. For someone like Lin Ming, it would only be strange if he failed his breakthrough. Okay. Port State was a city located in the sublime smelting divine kingdom. It was close to the 8,000-mile black swamp and not too far away from where the Temple of Marvels was located. Little brother Lin, I will personally bring you to Port State. But everything after that will depend on your own ability. You must be extra cautious. Although you broke through to the second stage of life destruction, it is still far away from making up for the gap between you and a divine sea powerhouse. Shai Bai said in his estimation. He didn't know that Lin Ming had broken through the gate of pain, so it was naturally impossible for him to estimate Lin Ming's combat strength. Then I must trouble Patriarch Shai Bai. Lin Ming didn't refuse the offer. 3 days later, at a courtyard deep within Port State, a Godspeed boat flew in and dropped off a young man and woman. These two appeared as if they were 20 to 30 years old, but the truth was that they had already practiced martial arts for over 60 years. They only had a youthful appearance because they had crossed life destruction at a very young age. These two people were the hidden ascetics of the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom and some of the most astounding youths of their generation. The young man was named Yong Mu, and his cultivation was impressively at the 7th stage of life destruction. However, he didn't have a Danshan variation, so he was slightly inferior to Saitu Yaoyu in that aspect. Nonetheless, his comprehension of laws actually surpassed hers, and he had also comprehended an elementary battle spirit. The young woman was named Qin Yu. She was not part of the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom's royal family, but rather a disciple with a different last name. Although her cultivation was only at the 6th stage of life destruction, if one looked carefully at her Danshan, they could see that all sorts of strange phenomena were occurring within. There seemed to be a faint space developing within her Danshan, and her true essence also appeared as if it were condensing into liquid. This was the sign that she was beginning to enter the Divine Sea. After a marshal reached the Hushan realm, that was the time they opened their Danshan and would begin to train it. During the Hushan realm, one's true essence would be a mess without any organization to it, so their reserves of true essence would be extremely limited. Once the true essence within the Danshan condensed into a cyclone, there would then be order. The total amount of true essence would increase and it would also become much easier to control. And after arriving at the revolving core realm, true essence would solidify into a revolving core crystal nucleus. During this time, their total true essence quantity would rise several times. During the stages of life destruction, there would be no changes in the Danshan. Rather, a martial artist's physical body would transform into a spirit body and they would gain the characteristic of saving true essence in their flesh. This would again cause the total quantity of true essence within them to increase by several times. After arriving at the Divine Sea realm, a martial artist's body would be completely soaked in true essence, without any more space to store more. And at this point, countless billions of years ago, the innumerable supreme elders that had forged the foundation for the road of martial arts had developed a new path. This was to form a minor dimension within the Danshan, and after true essence liquefied, to store that true essence within. The size of this minor dimension depended on a martial artist's foundation and strength. It could be small or large. When an 8th stage life destruction powerhouse finally reached the late Divine Sea realm, that minor dimension would be extremely vast. The liquid true essence would surge and tumble just like a vast sea. Thus, this boundary was called the Divine Sea. To a martial artist, the Divine Sea realm was a major leap upwards. The word divine also indicated that martial artists who stepped into this realm gained the power of a god in the eyes of mortals. Their fists could shatter the skies, their feet could crack the earth, and they were capable of upturning the oceans. They were simply omnipotent beings. And now, this young woman named Chinyu had given birth to a rudimentary minor dimension within her Danshan, with half of her true essence liquefied. This was the sign that she was a half-step into the Divine Sea realm. Once one reached half-step Divine Sea, then barring any accident, they would be able to become a Divine Sea Supreme Elder within 2 or 3 years. This Chinyu was already destined to become a Divine Sea powerhouse. Tip, you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
You look like you could use a new item of, indeterminate usefulness.
Are you strong enough to survive? Like the look of that.
Darkness awaits you.
to see you.
I need to go back.
Your trial is complete.
Martial World. Chapter 876 All Heroes Gathered. Chapter 876 All Heroes Gathered. Atat novel been at. The Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom was the most powerful of the four Divine Kingdoms, and thus their number of geniuses far outstripped that of the Asura Divine Kingdom. Although a talent on the level of Saitu Yaoyu was once in a millennium to the Asura Divine Kingdom, in the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom she would have appeared every 300 to 400 years. Crown Prince, Your Highness. Yong Mu and Qin Yu greeted Yong Yun, but there wasn't much respect showing on their faces. Qin Yu was already a half-step Divine Sea Master, and would become a Divine Sea Supreme Elder in just a few more years, enjoying similar treatment to a High Prince. She naturally didn't need to bow to the Crown Prince. As for Yong Mu, he was already 70 years old and had a 7th stage life destruction cultivation. In the future there was a chance he would become a top-level character like the Nine Furnace Highest Divine Emperor, so he naturally wouldn't respect someone like Yong Yun who was over 30 years younger than him. In fact, Yong Mu was very unwilling to accept that Yong Yun had inherited the position of Crown Prince. Yong Mu even had faint thoughts of replacing him. Elder Brother Mu, Fairy Qin. Yong Yun faintly smiled as he greeted them. Tomorrow, the four Divine Kingdoms will remove the blockade and officially enter the Temple of Marvels. This exploration might even reveal the secrets of the Sea of Miracles. It is of great significance. Moreover, as Yong Yun spoke to her, he took out a blue jade slip. My nine-furnace Divine Kingdom was the first to bring back information about the Temple of Marvels from our probe. As for the 7-star Divine Kingdom and the Asura Divine Kingdom, all of the puppets and slaves they sent in died, so they have no information. As for the explorer from the Sublime Smelting Divine Kingdom, he didn't dare to go too deep into the Temple of Marvels, so their information isn't as detailed as ours. Take a look. This information came at a significant cost, so make sure you keep it absolutely secret. As Yong Yun spoke, he tossed the blue jade slip towards Yong Mu and Qin Yu. After the two looked through it, their expressions changed. Yong Mu's eyes lit up. The Temple of Marvels is related to the secrets of the ancient times martial artists that ascended. It's our speculation. Yong Yun calmly nodded.
Then your trial.
The so-called ancient times referred to the period of time 100,000 years ago. That was when the Skyspill continent's martial arts civilization was at its most glorious and prosperous era. Compared to the current times, it seemed as if they were two completely separate worlds. According to the legends, 100,000 years ago, when a martial artist reached the Middle Divine Sea realm, they would have a reasonable chance of ascending into the Divine realm. As for those unrivaled talents with strength that far surpassed martial artists of their level, they could break through the martial void at the early Divine Sea realm or even 8th stage life destruction realm and ascend upwards. But in the last 100,000 years, there were far too few martial artists that were able to ascend to the Divine realm. There were only the few widely known and extremely rare martial artists like Emperor Shakya and the Demon Emperor that were known to have ascended. As for some others that were said to have ascended, no one knew if they had succeeded or died in the process. Moreover, it was a complete riddle just how these people had ascended. It seemed as if once they reached a certain amount of strength, they had formed a phenomenon of the heavens and earth and simply vanished. Even top-level characters like the Sublime Smelting Imperial Grand Uncle and the Ninth Furnace Highest Divine Emperor had no idea how to ascend upwards. After flying into the Divine Realm, there were advantages as well as disadvantages. In the Skyspill continent, characters like the Ninth Furnace Highest Divine Emperor could be said to control the world in their palms with no one daring to slight them. But once they reached the Divine Realm, they would actually be more minuscule than a nameless peon. If they tried to explore a mystic realm, they would easily die 4 or 5 times if someone tried to slap them to death. Even so, there were many masters that wished to ascend, especially the juniors. Those that were able to reach the Divine Sea could be said to have a devoted heart towards their road of martial arts. It was difficult for them to be tempted by any of the pleasures of the world. To them, only further martial arts breakthroughs would bring them joy and fulfill their obsessions. The Skyspill continent was too limited. Not to mention the resources, but the environment and inheritances there were simply a blank slate. In the Skyspill continent, for the inheritances of concepts and laws to reach the 2nd or 3rd boundary, that was already first class. As for the 7 or 8 boundaries behind that, no one in the Skyspill continent had even heard of them before. This sort of martial arts inheritance was accumulated over hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years, through the combined effort of countless martial artists. No matter how talented one was, it was impossible for a single person to accomplish all of this. To stay in the Skyspill continent meant that one would be destined to have no luck in reaching a realm above the Divine Sea and also be limited to 10,000 years of life. All of the juniors to have reached this stage were chosen prides of heaven, and all of them were ambitious individuals. Just who was willing to watch the thousands of years pass them by before they slowly turned into bones. Taking a step back, even if they didn't manage to accomplish anything in the Divine Realm, it seemed that there was a way to re-enter the lower realms. Although they needed to pay some price, there was hope. As Yong Mu and Qin Yu thought of this, both of them appeared excited and looked forwards to this jaunt into the Temple of Marvels more and more. This would relate to both of their future achievements. After Lin Ming arrived at Port State, he saw Old Man Good Fortune sitting near a table in a courtyard, his appearance still otherworldly and wizened as it had always been. His green ox was grazing underneath a tree. Looking at this scene, it was impossible to imagine that he might be the current top master of the entire Skyspill continent. Greetings to Senior Good Fortune. Little friend Lin does not need to be so courteous. During this trip into the Temple of Marvels, I fear that those old fellows Yong Laoshan and Duyehua will also come. Although Old Me has confidence to defeat them one-on-one, if the two of them joined forces then I would definitely lose. Moreover, besides those two fellows, there will also be many masters that have stayed hidden so far, with early and middle Divine Sea martial artists everywhere. The younger generation, including you, should only enter to gain experience. Make sure that you take your own safety as your top priority. Old Man Good said in a gentle tone as he sat on a stone stool, his hands leaning on his peach walking stick. The Yong Laoshan he referred to was the Ninth Furnace Highest Divine Emperor, and Duyehua was the Sublime Smelting Imperial Grand Uncle. Both of them were characters that had lived for 5,000 to 6,000 years and were unfathomable. It had already been thousands of years since Old Man Good Fortune fought with young Laotian. It was impossible to determine just how strong he had become since then. This junior understands. Lin Ming nodded. The truth was that while one of the reason he came to the Temple of Marvels was to seek lucky chances, that wasn't the most important reason. The reason that he would take the risk and journey into the Temple of Marvels was also because he wished to investigate the secret of the Sea of Miracles and the Eternal Demon Abyss. He faintly felt that it was related to the fall of the Skyspill continent's martial arts world 100,000 years ago. He wanted to know just who that great emperor was that had left the heart that still kept beating after 100,000 years, and just what the identity of that fearless goddess was. It was impossible for him to guess what realm that unrivaled great emperor was at. But in terms of life alone, a late divine sea martial artist could live for 10,000 years. Taking a step further, at the next great boundary, it stood to reason that one could live for tens of thousands of years. As for the boundary after that, that should be 100,000 years of life. And as for that unrivaled great emperor who had left his heart in the eternal demon abyss, his heart still kept beating after 100,000 years. Moreover, it was filled with rushing blood vitality, every beat being able to move the heavens and earth. If so, just how long was he able to live for? It was simply unimaginable. Lin Ming had inherited the memories of many divine realm powerhouses. Although they were all incomplete memories, he could still approximate just what status that unrivaled great emperor had within the divine realm. He was definitely a peak, top-level character, in no way inferior to the legendary world kings. To such a singular and unsurpassed hero, Lin Ming was filled with curiosity and respect towards his majesty and life story. On the next day, the skies above the 8,000-mile Black Swamp welcomed a crowd of the Skyspill continent's peak powerhouses. The 4 divine kingdoms, holy lands, and various hidden masters around the world did not want to miss such a rare opportunity. There was no need to mention why the young divine sea powerhouses came, as long as they could come across some lucky chance, they could walk further down their martial path. As for the older divine sea powerhouses, they didn't have much hope for making further progress, but since their lives were already coming to an end, they might as well take this battle to the death and hope that they could bump into some amazing luck. In addition, the various heroic young elites of the divine kingdoms and holy lands had come. They had come here mainly under the shelter of their elders in order to see the world and open their minds. For a time, hundreds of saint beast mounts, shining gold divine carriages, and jade spirit boats hundreds of feet long appeared in the skies, overflowing with divine light. This truly seemed like an auspicious sign. Against such a big ruckus, the startled and scared vicious beasts of the 8,000-mile Black Swamp didn't dare to appear. However, these vicious beasts were only the ordinary vicious beasts. If the truly terrifying phenomena of the 8,000-mile Black Swamp appeared, then even these great figures would have to make way. For instance, the Yellow Springs River or an ancient beast on the level of the sea serpent dragon. Thus, even as these great figures seemed proud and haughty, they were in fact spreading their perception in all directions. As long as some type of phenomenon occurred that they weren't able to contend with, then they would be able to dodge ahead of time. Otherwise, if this strongest lineup of the entire Skyspill continent suffered serious losses before they could even reach the entrance to the Temple of Marvels, that would truly be a joke. All the powerhouses were divided into 5 different waves. The first 4 waves were made up of the 4 divine kingdoms and the sects and family clans that followed them. The last wave was comprised of the lone sects and scattered martial artists. This wave was the smallest and the weakest, with only a few dozen people there. The younger generation of this wave was even more sad, they were simply unable to compare with the 4 divine kingdoms. Millimeter. Old Man Good Fortune. It wasn't known which martial artist suddenly shouted this, but as everyone followed his gaze they could see the white-robed Old Man Good Fortune riding a green ox as they floated on a cloud. And behind him was a handsome young man who didn't even seem like a martial artist, but rather an elegant scholar. Old Man Good Fortune. Lin Lanjian. Before now, those present didn't know if these two would come. Even Yong Yun and Du Yixingfeng weren't sure. As these two arrived, even Divine Sea Supreme Elders felt fear in their hearts. Old Man Good Fortune's fame was too great. As for Lin Ming, there was no need to mention him. He was an existence that absolutely could not be provoked. One only had to take a look at the Asura Divine Kingdom's current fate to see what the outcome would be, and this was only the time when Lin Ming hadn't yet grown. No one knew just what heights he would reach in 10 years. Old Man Good Fortune, I didn't think you would really come. You really have appeared too much this past while. An old voice suddenly sounded out. On the side of the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom, an old man in a purple gold imperial robe suddenly stood up from a golden divine carriage. He was the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom's highest divine emperor, Yong Laotian. Even Yong Laotian didn't know Old Man Good Fortune's real name. They only knew the moniker that he went by. Old Man Good Fortune showed a smile that didn't seem as if it would change in 10,000 years. Old me has just finished 800 years of seclusion, so I've been feeling a bit restless and wanted to come out and catch some fresh air. Brother Laotian should feel relieved. Old me only wishes to come to this Temple of Marvels to take a look. I'll make sure I don't bother Brother Laotian's little treasure hunt. Seclusion for 800 years. There was a collective gasp from the surroundings. Many of the young martial artists present weren't even 80 years old yet. It was nearly impossible for them to imagine closing up for 800 years in one go. Lin Ming thought this was hilarious. What these people didn't know was that while Old Man Good Fortune said he had gone into seclusion for 800 years, the truth was that it was only 80 years. He had slowed down the flow of time within his seclusion by 10 times, thus 80 years there was equal to 800 years outside. Tip, you can use left, right, A and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Martial World. Chapter 877 Entering the Temple. Chapter 877 Entering the Temple. At novel being at. Young Laotian's eyebrows audibly clicked together as he heard Old Man Good Fortune's words. Although he didn't believe such nonsense like that he would be able to close up for 800 years at a time, he was able to confirm that he certainly had some sort of secret skill to extend his life. That was his understanding of time laws. Young Laotian couldn't say that this didn't tempt him, but against this Old Man Good Fortune, whose strength likely surpassed his own, young Laotian had no thoughts that he would be able to snatch the concept of time inheritance from Old Man Good Fortune's hands. Young Laotian thought for a moment and didn't continue to speak. He felt an extreme fear towards Old Man Good Fortune in his heart. On the Sublime Smelting Divine Kingdom side, the Sublime Smelting Imperial Grand Uncle Uyahua greeted Old Man Good Fortune with a faint smile. He wasn't too familiar with Old Man Good Fortune, they were neither enemies nor friends. He wasn't like young Laotian, who had once fought with Old Man Good Fortune. Lin Ming could feel gazes filled with intense hatred beaming onto his body from the crowd. As he looked around, he wasn't surprised at all to see that it was Saitu Banan and Saitu Laoxi. Those two old fellows are really haunting me like ghosts. Lin Ming's expression sank. Saitu Laoxi and Saitu Banan were nearing the end of their lifespan and they had originally relied on lucky chances to forcefully rise to the Divine Sea realm. If they missed this chance then their lives would come to an end in another 500 to 600 years. Lin Ming would have been shocked if they hadn't come. Ha ha, brother Lin, you really came. In the distance, Hu Jingfeng and Yang Yu greeted Lin Ming, both of them cupping their hands across their chests. Lin Ming also greeted them in return. In a brief glimpse, Lin Ming could see that there were several outstanding young elites standing beside Hu Jingfeng and Yang Yu. Their cultivations were at the 6th and 7th stage of life destruction and the aura they released was no weaker than that of Saitu Yaoyu. He's Lin Lanjian. Beside Yu Jingfeng, a young man holding a blue sword arched his eyebrows upwards. His name was Yu Kun and he was the same as Jin Yu, a 6th stage life destruction martial artist that was a half step into the Divine Sea. However, he was just a tad stronger than Jin Yu. He had inborn purple Tang meridians, a meridian variation. However, those born with purple Yang meridians were destined to have normal martial talent. Yu Jin was finally unable to take that final step into the 7th stage of life destruction. And thus, with his 6th stage life destruction cultivation, he began to step into the Divine Sea. To this end, Yu Kun had also taken this to heart, constantly brooding over this. He had great ambitions, but if he wasn't able to step into the 7th stage of life destruction then he simply had no hope of ever becoming the highest under the heavens. That's right. Yu Jingfeng nodded. Yu Kun narrowed his eyes. This Lan Lanjian was the future highest under the heavens. Just what secrets could be on his body? The Temple of Marvels is just in the dense fog ahead. The entrance is protected by a barrier of energy, and this energy barrier is weakest in the early morning and late evening. In just another incense stick of time, we will be able to enter. The one who spoke was the Sublime Smelting Imperial Grand Uncle. With his words, the group began to slowly make their way forwards. Lin Ming passed through the fog and watched as the legendary Temple of Marvels appeared in front of him. The temple floated high above the clouds. From afar it emitted a dazzling golden light. It seemed to be carved from jade and the top of the temple pierced straight into the 9 heavens thunder dominion. Countless arcs of thunder surrounded the dome of the temple. There was no signboard on the Temple of Marvels, only countless silver runes that covered the outside. There were no doors leading to the Great Hall. Right in front of them was a row of massive columns that rose thousands of feet into the air, and in between these columns was a number of pitch-black entrances. There was a strange force field that twisted these entrances, separating them from the outside world. This sort of force field was not created by human hands. Rather, it appeared because of some mystical energy from within the Temple of Marvels. This energy was far too powerful, so it naturally distorted the space around it, forming a closed force field. It was the same as the Eternal Demon Abyss 1000-mile Forbidden Zone and the 8000 Black Swamp. And although the force field around the Temple of Marvels was smaller, it was far more formidable. I'll go first. Young Laoshan let out a long laugh and then drove his divine carriage to an entrance between two columns. As he approached the force field, he extracted a shining gold divine mace from his spatial ring and slammed it against the closed-off force field, directly shattering it. The divine sea powerhouses of the Nine Furnace Divine Kingdom brought their heroic young elites in with them. In addition to the other Holy Land influences subordinate to them, over 50 people made their way in. Soon after they entered, the sublime smelting divine kingdom followed close behind. Uyahua broke through the force field and brought in a group of over 40 people. The Asura divine kingdom and the Seven-Star divine kingdom went next, followed by the scattered martial artists. Old man Good Fortune didn't seem to be in a hurry. He said to Lin Ming, at the entrance to the Temple of Marvels, every gap between two pillars leads to a different place. Let's choose a separate route so we don't end up together with them. Old man Good Fortune casually chose an entryway, then with a single pat of his palm the force field shattered, and he and Lin Ming calmly entered the Temple of Marvels. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Great black waves tumbled as they beat against rocks. Lin Ming stood on a desolate island beach. A black sea spread out without end, appearing like the fabled Sea of Miracles. And above this island there were giant trees that resembled umbrellas. These great trees were hundreds of feet high and not even a dozen people holding hands could wrap around the trunk. The little bits of light that made it through the canopy of these trees resembled stars. This world had no sun, but the little bit of star-like light coming from those trees illuminated the world. This shouldn't be an island in the Sea of Miracles, right? Lin Ming was stunned. Even though he truly wished to discover the secrets of the Sea of Miracles, he was extremely frightened by this sea. He did not even have the slightest hope that he would be able to make it out. After all, his strength was far from comparable to the past highest under the heavens. No need to be anxious. This is only a world within the Temple of Marvels, a world of sand. Those ancient supreme elders with an extremely high cultivation were able to create independent spaces, so opening numerous worlds within this temple isn't strange at all. This is also the fifth level of the concept of space spatial genesis. The fifth level. Lin Ming was startled. He already knew that every law was divided into several different levels. For instance, the fire laws were divided into 9 different boundaries. The first 2 boundaries were the concept of burning heat and the concept of annihilation, both of them corresponding to the first 2 worlds of the God-transforming mirror. And behind these 2 worlds were more worlds, each corresponding to a different kind of concept. The deeper one delved, the more profound and difficult it became to understand these laws. Lin Ming was stranded at the 2nd level of the fire laws. He hadn't even been able to touch upon the entryway to the 3rd level. Even so, Lin Ming's achievements in the fire attribute concepts were already considered extraordinary. And listening to Old Man Good Fortune's words, it seemed that the ancient Supreme Elder who had created this Temple of Marvels had reached at least the concept of space's 5th level. This was far too amazing. How many boundaries are there in the space laws? And what are they? Lin Ming couldn't help but ask. Old Man Good Fortune didn't hide anything. He directly said, the space laws have a total of 10 different boundaries. They are, space distortion, heavens divide, dimensional slash, space disruption, spatial genesis, space storm, black hole vortex, 10th space dimension, world destruction, and world creation. Old Man Good Fortune spoke out the names of these 10 boundaries but didn't give a detailed explanation of them. Still, Lin Ming was shocked just hearing these names. He found it hard to imagine just what it was like the further back one went. Old Man Good Fortune sighed, the road of martial arts is endless and infinite. Of these 10 different levels of concepts, the first 5 are relatively simple. But, the latter half is nearly impossible to speculate. The so-called space storm is in truth controlling the power of space. With just a thought, you would be able to move space freely. As for black hole vortex, that is the ability to compress space to a single point, collapsing all of existence into nothingness, forever unable to leave. As for the 10th space dimension, even I haven't been able to figure out just what that is. Then there is world destruction and world creation. Those refer to the destruction and creation of a true realm. It's impossible to imagine just what sort of mighty force that would be. The planet that the Sky Spill continent resided on was part of a true boundless realm. But, it was only one of the 3,000 boundless worlds. It was impossible to calculate just how many worlds there were. The divine realm measured the lower realms by 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000, meaning that there were a billion worlds, thus naming it a true boundless realm. Every one of these boundless realms also had countless dimensional realms and minor dimensions located within them. It was incomparably complex. To destroy and create such a terrifyingly massive world system that was unimaginable. What boundary has Senior Good Fortune reached? Lin Ming asked. Old Man Good Fortune shook his head. I've only been able to comprehend the third boundary dimensional slash. It's impossible for me to think of reaching any further in my life. As Lin Ming heard dimensional slash, he suddenly thought of that sword strike Old Man Good Fortune had used to defeat Saitu Haoshian. That had been the dimensional slash. To use a space fragment as a weapon and cut through all. Even though Saitu Haoshian had transformed his body into that of a giant demon, he still wasn't able to defend against it. They were simply on two completely disparate levels. To comprehend the third level concept, dimensional slash, was also impressively breathtaking. Little friend Lin, the road in front of us isn't too hard. How about you help an old man lead the way? Lin Ming could hear the implicit meaning within his words. Old Man Good Fortune wanted him to gain more experience. He pondered for a moment, hesitating, and then couldn't help but ask, Senior Good Fortune, this junior has a question that he isn't sure whether it is proper to ask. There's no danger in asking. This junior would like to ask, why does Senior Good Fortune help this junior so much? Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Feel my wrath. My hatred is too low.
Martial World. Chapter 878 The Link Between the Sea of Miracles and the Eternal Demon Abyss. Chapter 878 The Link Between the Sea of Miracles and the Eternal Demon Abyss. At novel being at. After hearing Lin Ming ask such a question, Old Man Good Fortune congenially laughed and traced his white beard. Little friend Lin, the truth is that old me comes from the divine realm. I am the warden for the Skyspill continent's world, and am responsible for watching over the martial artists on both of the continents on this planet. Because this planet has been blocked off by some mysterious power, martial artists from the divine realm that are above the divine sea realm cannot descend here. At least, it is impossible for them to arrive with their true forms, they can only send a projection. And for the divine sea martial artists of this world, wanting to use their martial path to pierce the void is nearly impossible. They will need to leave through a special space channel, thus I am the one to recommend them. Lin Ming was shocked by Old Man Good Fortune's few words. He couldn't believe that Old Man Good Fortune had such a status. He came from the divine realm and was also the warden of this planet. And listening to his words, he obviously knew of the existence of the Holy Demon Continent. This world had a total of 2 continents, the Skyspill continent and the Holy Demon Continent. However, the more Lin Ming thought over this, the more reasonable it was. Old Man Good Fortune seemed as if he had come out from nowhere, and had an extremely mystical history within the Skyspill continent. Even the Ninth Furnace Highest Divine Emperor and the others didn't know his true name or status, only the moniker that he went by. Moreover, Old Man Good Fortune had extremely high achievements in the concept of space and the concept of time. This also explained why he was able to have these in the Skyspill continent, where there were basically no inheritances of space and time concepts. If Old Man Good Fortune came from the divine realm and was simultaneously responsible for being the warden and also instructing and receiving certain individuals to ascend, then he wouldn't necessarily worry or care about Lin Ming threatening his current status once he became highest under the heavens. On the contrary, he might even help train him. If Old Man Good Fortune could help deliver a top talent to the divine realm, then the influence backing him might grant him certain resources. Thinking about it, when Emperor Shakya ascended into the divine realm 3,000 years ago, that was also the time when Old Man Good Fortune and the Ninth Furnace Highest Divine Emperor had once fought, resulting in a tie. Afterwards, Old Man Good Fortune had become increasingly old. His strength should have declined since then, but he instead managed to make a breakthrough, improving his abilities once again. There was a chance that this was because Emperor Shakya was simply far too talented an individual, and thus the divine realm influence had given him very rich rewards in return, allowing him to make another breakthrough in his old age and also likely being the reason for extending his life. In that flash, Lin Ming immediately understood everything that had happened. No wonder Old Man Good Fortune said he couldn't teach him or be his master. It was likely that Old Man Good Fortune had come to a deep understanding of him and even knew of his dual body and essence cultivation. So you're saying that Emperor Shakya, the Demon Emperor, and others didn't rely on their own strength to break through the void with their martial path and ascend, but rather had other similar wardens that delivered them upwards? That's right. Old Man Good Fortune wryly laughed and said with a bit of helplessness, Old me is simply too stupid and untalented. I was stranded at the Middle Divine Sea Realm for 500 years and had no hopes for further breakthroughs. In the Divine Realm, the competition between martial artists is too intense, and I was tired of being far weaker than everyone else. Thus I took the initiative to apply for the lower realms, where I would be able to live freely and grandly. Lin Ming felt this was a bit ironic. He was someone from the divine realm that wanted to descend, but the people from the lower realms wished to ascend. Those old fellows of the Skyspill continent all desperately desired to soar into the divine realm, but their talent was no more than that of Old Man Good Fortune. Old Man Good Fortune had likely broken through the middle divine sea realm before 500 years of age. The only martial artists of the Skyspill continent that could accomplish something similar were top-level characters like Saitu Haoshian. Old fellows like the Nine Furnace Highest Divine Emperor all wished to enter the divine realm, thinking that massive lucky chances were just waiting for them everywhere. But now it seemed that if they really went, they would probably get beaten up badly wherever they went, or perhaps just directly die. Only such magnificent and glorious individuals like the Demon Emperor and Emperor Shakya were able to go to the divine realm to seek greater lucky chances in hopes that they would be able to surpass the divine sea realm. Senior said just now that the Skyspill continent's world is blocked by some mysterious strength. Yes. This strength comes from the Sea of Miracles. Every martial artist above the divine sea is unable to step into the Skyspill continent. Old Man Good Fortune shook his head. If it weren't for this reason, then him having applied to be the warden of this planet with his middle divine sea cultivation would have been far too embarrassing. Then what about the Eternal Demon Abyss? Lin Ming suddenly asked. Old Man Good Fortune was slightly startled. You know about the Holy Demon Continent and the Eternal Demon Abyss. Millimeter, this junior accidentally stumbled upon an opportunity and obtained the inheritance of Senior Demon Emperor. I managed to reach the Holy Demon Continent through the transmission array at the Demon God Imperial Palace, and also experienced the Eternal Demon Abyss during my time there. This junior would like to know, just how are the Eternal Demon Abyss and the Sea of Miracles related? Lin Ming didn't conceal anything, nor did he need to. He could now see that Old Man Good Fortune was someone that didn't have great ambitions, otherwise he wouldn't have come down to become the warden of this world. Moreover, there was little within the Demon God Imperial Palace that he would like. Eternal Demon Abyss. Sea of Miracles. Old Man Good Fortune revealed a trace of reverence and awe as he heard these two names. I don't know the specifics as to what happened at those two places, but I do have some speculations. Millimeter. Senior, please speak them. Little friend Lin, I'm not sure whether you know this, but the Skyspill continent and the Holy Demon continent are in fact located on a celestial body, and the shape of this celestial body is that of a sphere, similar to the sun in the skies. Sphere. Lin Ming was stunned. Although he obtained some knowledge after hearing Lin Ming ask such a question, Old Man Good Fortune congenially laughed and traced his white beard. Little friend Lin, the truth is that old me comes from the divine realm. I am the warden for the Skyspill continent's world, and am responsible for watching over the martial artists on both of the continents on this planet. Because this planet has been blocked off by some mysterious power, martial artists from the divine realm that are above the divine sea realm cannot descend here. At least, it is impossible for them to arrive with their true forms, they can only send a projection. And for the divine sea martial artists of this world, wanting to use their martial path to pierce the void is nearly impossible. They will need to leave through a special space channel, thus I am the one to recommend them. Lin Ming was shocked by Old Man Good Fortune's few words. He couldn't believe that Old Man Good Fortune had such a status. He came from the divine realm and was also the warden of this planet. And listening to his words, he obviously knew of the existence of the Holy Demon Continent. This world had a total of 2 continents, the Skyspill continent and the Holy Demon Continent. However, the more Lin Ming thought over this, the more reasonable it was. Old Man Good Fortune seemed as if he had come out from nowhere, and had an extremely mystical history within the Skyspill continent. Even the Nine Furnace Highest Divine Emperor and the others didn't know his true name or status, only the moniker that he went by. Moreover, Old Man Good Fortune had extremely high achievements in the concept of space and the concept of time. This also explained why he was able to have these in the Skyspill continent, where there were basically no inheritances of space and time concepts. If Old Man Good Fortune came from the divine realm and was simultaneously responsible for being the warden and also instructing and receiving certain individuals to ascend, then he wouldn't necessarily worry or care about Lin Ming threatening his current status once he became highest under the heavens. On the contrary, he might even help train him. If Old Man Good Fortune could help deliver a top talent to the divine realm, then the influence backing him might grant him certain resources. Thinking about it, when Emperor Shakya ascended into the divine realm 3,000 years ago, that was also the time when Old Man Good Fortune and the Nine Furnace Highest Divine Emperor had once fought, resulting in a tie. Afterwards, Old Man Good Fortune had become increasingly old. His strength should have declined since then, but he instead managed to make a breakthrough, improving his abilities once again. There was a chance that this was because Emperor Shakya was simply far too talented an individual and thus the divine realm influence had given him very rich rewards in return, allowing him to make another breakthrough in his old age and also likely being the reason for extending his life. In that flash, Lin Ming immediately understood everything that had happened. No wonder Old Man Good Fortune said he couldn't teach him or be his master. It was likely that Old Man Good Fortune had come to a deep understanding of him and even knew of his dual body and essence cultivation. So you're saying that Emperor Shakya, the Demon Emperor, and others didn't rely on their own strength to break through the void with their martial path and ascend, but rather had other similar wardens that delivered them upwards? That's right. Old Man Good Fortune wryly laughed and said with a bit of helplessness, old me is simply too stupid and untalented. I was stranded at the middle divine sea realm for 500 years and had no hopes for further breakthroughs. In the divine realm, The competition between martial artists is too intense, and I was tired of being far weaker than everyone else. Thus I took the initiative to apply for the lower realms, where I would be able to live freely and grandly. Lin Ming felt this was a bit ironic. He was someone from the divine realm that wanted to descend, but the people from the lower realms wished to ascend. Those old fellows of the Spicefield continent all desperately desired to soar into the divine realm, but their talent was no more than that of Old Man Good Fortune. Old Man Good Fortune had likely broken through the middle divine sea realm before 500 years of age. The only martial artists of the Spicefield continent that could accomplish something similar were top-level characters like Saitu Haoshian. Old fellows like the Ninth Furnace Highest Divine Emperor all wished to enter the divine realm, thinking that massive lucky chances were just waiting for them everywhere. But now it seemed that if they really went, they would probably get beaten up badly wherever they went, or perhaps just directly die. Only such magnificent and glorious individuals like the Demon Emperor and Emperor Shakya were able to go to the divine realm to seek greater lucky chances in hopes that they would be able to surpass the divine sea realm. Senior said just now that the Spicefield continent's world is blocked by some mysterious strength. Yes. This strength comes from the Sea of Miracles. Every martial artist above the divine sea is unable to step into the Spicefield continent. Old Man Good Fortune shook his head. If it weren't for this reason, then him having applied to be the warden of this planet with his middle divine sea cultivation would have been far too embarrassing. Then what about the eternal demon abyss? Lin Ming suddenly asked. Old Man Good Fortune was slightly startled. You know about the Holy Demon Continent and the Eternal Demon Abyss. Millimeter, this junior accidentally stumbled upon an opportunity and obtained the inheritance of Senior Demon Emperor. I managed to reach the Holy Demon Continent through the transmission array at the Demon God Imperial Palace, and also experienced the Eternal Demon Abyss during my time there. This junior would like to know, just how are the Eternal Demon Abyss and the Sea of Miracles related? Lin Ming didn't conceal anything, nor did he need to. He could now see that Old Man Good Fortune was someone that didn't have great ambitions, otherwise he wouldn't have come down to become the warden of this world. Moreover, there was little within the Demon God Imperial Palace that he would like. Eternal Demon Abyss. Sea of Miracles. Old Man Good Fortune revealed a trace of reverence and awe as he heard these two names. I don't know the specifics as to what happened at those two places, but I do have some speculations. Millimeter. Senior, please speak them. Little friend Lin, I'm not sure whether you know this, but the Spicefield continent and the Holy Demon continent are in fact located on a celestial body, and the shape of this celestial body is that of a sphere, similar to the sun in the skies. Sphere. Lin Ming was stunned. Although he obtained some knowledge about celestial bodies from the Divine Realm Supreme Elder's memories, it was a bit strange and magical to suddenly realize that the earth underneath his feet was in the shape of a sphere. The Eternal Demon Abyss and the Sea of Miracles are directly underneath each other. Does this form any associations in your mind? This is, Lin Ming's mind began to race. Old Man Good Fortune's meaning was that the Eternal Demon Abyss and the Sea of Miracles were on exact opposites of this spherical planet, each of them both above and below the other. This sort of wondrous positioning caused Lin Ming to feel as if he could faintly understand something, but he couldn't yet put it into words. Old Man Good Fortune took a deep breath and then, with a hint of fear glinting in his eyes, he slowly said, if I'm not wrong, the Eternal Demon Abyss and the Sea of Miracles pass directly through each other, connecting through an unfathomable abyss that rooms between them. And the reason for this abyss being formed is likely because a Divine Realm Supreme Elder pierced through this planet, thus leaving this path. The Sea of Miracles is much larger than the Eternal Demon Abyss, so my guess is that the Sea of Miracles is the point of initial impact. As for the Eternal Demon Abyss, that should be the exit point of that attack that was left over after it pierced directly through this planet. What? As Lin Ming heard Old Man Good Fortune's words, his eyes went perfectly round, his mind boggled. Just how great was the planet that the Skyspill continent was on? It was unimaginable. He feared that it was over 100 million miles wide in diameter. To pierce through such a massive planet, just what kind of strength was needed for this? This was incomprehensible. Was this done by a legendary Empire Eon from the Divine Realm? Old Man Good Fortune said, the Divine Realm is far too vast, with countless worlds. Those Supreme Elders of the Divine Realm can simply wave their hands to destroy the heavens, collapse moons, and sink stars. To them, piercing through a planet with a single strike isn't much at all. Tip, you can use left, right, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters.
Your fear betrays you.
The Rift Guardian has found
Let's see the gem.
need to go back.
A fine battle.
The light grows stronger within you.
You look like you could use a new item of, indeterminate usefulness. Lucky you. See you soon. Well, it's a good paperweight.
I'm overburdened.
Fortune favors the bold. What a steal.
I cannot afford that.
Unleash your power, champion. The Rift Guardian has found.
I need to go back.
A fine battle.
Excellent.
I've got some brand new goods you might be interested in. Want to find
Not what I would do, but when has that stopped you?
You look like you could use a new item of, indeterminate. What?
That is too
I didn't
expensive.
even know I had that thing.
Embrace your power, and you will survive.
bleed, you filth! Darkness awaits you. He won't survive that.
Not ready yet.
Still waiting. Sweet revenge!
The Rift Guardian.
I am returning to town. returning to town.
You look like you could use a new item of, indeterminate usefulness.
Are you strong enough to survive the trials?
Do you want more? Do you want more? Need more time. Do you want more? My hatred is too low. Sweet revenge! Not ready yet.
The Rift Guardian has arrived.
I need to go back.
A fine battle.
Good choice.